The dangerous illusion of someday. There is a word that feels harmless when you say it quietly to yourself late at night. A word that sounds patient, reasonable, even wise, yet carries the quiet power to erase entire lifetimes without ever announcing itself as the enemy. And that word is someday. Someday, you tell yourself, you will finally begin. Someday you will change. Someday you will speak your truth, leave what drains you, become who you feel you were meant to be. And yet, as the days pass and the years quietly stack upon each other, that someday never seems to arrive. Not because time is cruel, but because the illusion was never meant to come true in the first place. Think about this for a moment. If your life were a story, how many chapters have already been titled, "Not yet," "Later," or "When the time is right"? And how many moments of quiet knowing have you silenced with the promise that you will listen to them later, once conditions are safer, easier, more certain? But here's what no one tells you. Someday is not a plan. It is a psychological anesthetic, a way the mind protects you from discomfort while slowly stealing the only time you will ever truly have. Carl Jung once warned that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And nowhere is this more evident than in the way people surrender their agency to the future, unconsciously believing that time itself will do the work that only courage can. Because someday feels productive without requiring risk, hopeful without demanding action, comforting without forcing confrontation, and in a world that subtly rewards safety over truth, this illusion becomes not only personal but cultural. Napoleon Hill observed that one of the most common causes of failure is the habit of waiting, of assuming that the right opportunity will magically appear at some undefined point in the future, rather than recognizing that decisive action is what creates opportunity in the first place. And yet most people continue to believe that clarity precedes action, when in reality action is what forges clarity. Now ask yourself this. How many times have you postponed becoming yourself because you believed you needed to feel ready first? Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of the human tendency to avoid becoming who we are by clinging to comfort, routine, and familiar identities, even when those identities suffocate our potential. And someday becomes the perfect hiding place, because it allows us to maintain the image of ambition without the burden of transformation. The dangerous part is not that someday delays your dreams. The dangerous part is that it reshapes your identity. Each time you choose postponement over presence, you reinforce a subtle self-image, one that says, "I am not someone who acts. I am not someone who chooses. I am someone who waits." And obertai. This identity hardens, not through dramatic failure, but through quiet repetition. While Carl Jung believed this pattern was driven by unconscious fear and unintegrated shadow aspects of the psyche, Napoleon Hill framed it as mental programming, habits of thought conditioned by environment, education, and repeated self-doubt, yet both pointed toward the same truth. The longer you delay conscious choice, the more your life becomes a script written by forces you never questioned. Think about this for a moment. No one wakes up one day and suddenly realizes they wasted their life. Instead, it happens gradually, through thousands of small moments where action was deferred, intuition was ignored, and discomfort was avoided in the name of patience. Viktor Frankl, who endured the unimaginable and still emerged with a profound understanding of human meaning, argued that life is constantly asking us questions, and our responsibility is to answer through action, not intention, because meaning is not something discovered in reflection alone, but something revealed through commitment to what life demands now. And yet, someday teaches us to believe that meaning will wait. Alan Watts often spoke about the illusion of time as a psychological construct that pulls us away from the only reality that exists, the present moment, and when you live for a future that never arrives, you are effectively postponing life itself, mistaking anticipation for living and preparation for purpose. But here's what no one tells you. The future you are waiting for is shaped by who you are being today, not by who you promise to become tomorrow. Every someday decision is not neutral. It is a vote for the current version of you, a reinforcement of the patterns you claim you want to escape. And the longer this continues, the more foreign change begins to feel, until even the idea of transformation triggers anxiety rather than excitement. Carl Jung would say this is because what we refuse to confront within ourselves does not disappear, but manifests as stagnation, dissatisfaction, and quiet resentment toward life. while Friedrich Nietzsche would argue that this avoidance is a form of nihilism, not the loud despair of hopelessness, but the silent erosion of vitality through inaction. Now, ask yourself honestly, what truth have you been postponing because acknowledging it would require you to act? What decision have you delayed because choosing it would mean letting go of who you have been pretending to be? Napoleon Hill believed that decision is the master skill, the moment where desire crystallizes into destiny, and he observed that successful individuals make decisions quickly and change them slowly, while unsuccessful ones do the opposite, endlessly delaying commitment under the illusion of caution. But the truth is simpler and far more uncomfortable. There is no someday version of you who magically becomes braver, clearer, or more disciplined without your participation, because courage is not something you wait for, it is something you practice. And yet, this realization does not need to be heavy, because the moment you see someday for what it truly is, a story, not a law, you regain something powerful: choice. You realize that awakening is not a dramatic event, but a quiet shift in how you relate to time, responsibility, and yourself. Alan Watts once said that trying to improve yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth, because transformation does not come from force, but from awareness, and awareness begins the moment you stop negotiating with the future and start listening to the present. This does not mean reckless action or blind urgency. It means honest engagement. It means recognizing that the conditions you are waiting for are unlikely to arrive, not because life is cruel, but because growth requires friction, uncertainty, and risk, and life will not remove these obstacles. Eat usus tem. Viktor Frankl reminded us that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies our power to choose. And someday collapses that space by deferring choice indefinitely, while awareness expands it by returning responsibility to you. Now, think about this for a moment. What if the life you want is not waiting on more time, more confidence, or more certainty, but on a single moment of honest decision? Not to know everything, not to be ready for everything, but to stop lying to yourself about when life begins. Because life does not begin someday. It begins the moment you stop postponing yourself. And here is where hope enters, quietly but unmistakably. The same mechanism that allowed someday to control you, your imagination, can be reclaimed as a tool for conscious creation. Not fantasy, but vision grounded in action. Not escape, but embodiment. Carl Jung spoke of individuation as the process of becoming whole, not by eliminating fear, but by integrating it. And each time you act, despite uncertainty, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was buried beneath hesitation. Friedrich Nietzsche believed that becoming who you are requires a willingness to stand alone, to disappoint expectations, and to choose your path without guarantees. And yet it is precisely this willingness that transforms suffering into strength. So if you feel a quiet discomfort right now, a subtle recognition that this message is speaking directly to you, do not push it away with another promise of later. Let it be enough to choose presence over postponement, honesty over habit, and action over illusion. You do not need to change everything today. You only need to stop waiting for a day that never comes. And if this message spoke to you, if it stirred something you can no longer ignore, subscribe to Becoming You and keep growing with us. And if you stayed until the end, comment the word decision below and share what you are no longer willing to postpone.